I'm sure most of you have heard the conspiracy of The Simpsons being able to predict real-life events. And if you haven't, I'll show you some examples. They predicted Donald Trump becoming president, Kamala Harris getting her position as vice president, as well as some people conspire they predicted 9/11. While some of you may have never seen The Simpsons, I'm for certain that all of you have watched at least one TV series or one movie, and that piece of media can be more important than you think. The reasoning behind that idea is narrative ethics. Today, we are going to talk about what narrative ethics is, why it is important, and how it can affect people's lives. It is important to understand what narrative ethics is because it can be used to relate situations that take place in a story to real life situations, so that we can use that story to our benefit. So what is narrative ethics? Narrative ethics is the idea that we can derive an understanding of real life situations and problems based on situations and problems and stories. An example of narrative ethics being used is the story of the boy who cried wolf. The story goes that there was a little shepherd boy that when he was bored, he would go around to the villagers and lie saying that there was a wolf. And so the villagers would stress out and try to protect their sheep. But he did it so many times that the one time that there was a wolf and that he was not lying, the villagers did not believe him. And so the consequence of that was that all the sheep got eaten by the wolf. And so, even though that story is a fable and fiction, we are able to derive an understanding from that story that lying is bad and that lying comes with consequences. And that is what narrative ethics is about. Why is narrative ethics important? It can be a tool for society to learn from the past and maybe even past mistakes. So the way that works is that if we want to learn and gain knowledge about people from a certain time period, we can look at books from that time period. And we can see how the characters in those books thought. And if we can understand how those characters thought, that can give us a glimpse of how the people of that time period thought as well. Because the people of that time period are the ones that wrote those characters and created those characters. So the connection is there. Narrative ethics can also help in decision making. So let's say, for example, we are faced with a problem in the real world that is similar to a problem that a character faced in the story. We can see if that character made a good decision that led in good consequences so that we can make a decision similar to him, or we can see if they made a bad decision that led to bad consequences so that we can make a decision that is not similar, that we can steer away from that. Narrative ethics can also affect people's lives. It can be used to change the way people think. For example, I enjoy manga. Manga is a Japanese style of comic book or graphic novel. And I once read this manga titled Oyasumi Punpun by Inio Asano. It was a story of the life of a boy named Punpun. It followed Punpun from childhood all the way to adulthood. And all throughout his childhood and teen years, Punpun would tell himself that he was okay and that his day was great at the end of the night, even if that's not how he felt. And eventually, during adulthood, Punpun hit a breaking point. And after that breaking point, Punpun spiraled out of control and made bad decision after bad decision. And that eventually led to him attempting suicide. And even though that story is fiction, I was able to derive the understanding that bottling up your emotion is not good. And that's something that you should avoid. Or you could be in a situation similar to Punpun, which is not one you want to be in. Narrative ethics can also make people open-minded. In a review done by Jesse Kalin, a professor of philosophy, film, and humanities of Martha Nussbaum's Love's Knowledge, it is said that literature is needed because it makes apparent the features of our lives that would be otherwise overlooked and not referred upon. Thus proving that literature is indeed a useful tool for us understanding our lives, which also strengthens the fact that narrative ethics can be used in our lives as well. Today, we talked about what narrative ethics was, why it is important, and how it can affect people's lives. It is important to understand narrative ethics because we can relate situations and stories to real-world situations so that we can use them to our benefit. So with that being said, I encourage all of you to go watch or read a series and try to use narrative ethics to deepen your understanding of that series, as well as the real world. Thank you.